Brian, there is going to come a year. I don't know when it's going to be, but there's going to come a year when you're actually going to legitimately have to be on the edge of your seat, where Clemson may be 10-2 with an ACC championship or a non-champion with a loss. And you'll actually have to be on, not just kind of thinking, oh, are we going to be 1 or 2? Are we going to be 2 or 3? You've had it pretty easy.
I have been very spoiled. I was thinking about that today when we were talking about doing the show tonight, and I get to thinking that if I divide up into sections how many years I've been pulling for Clemson since I can remember, and I was born in 82, so I can barely remember the Danny Ford days. And still, even with all this success that Clemson's had, I've had to deal with way more percentage-wise, years of disappointment, wasted talent, just up and down in the toilet bowl. So it is fun, but you are right. I'm spoiled. The Clemson community is spoiled, and so it's nice. I'm going to take it while I can because 15 years ago, I was thinking about this as well. 15 years ago, Mark, if you and I were doing a show tonight, we wouldn't be talking about Clemson at all. We'd be talking about Texas and Southern Cal. And when you consider these two historic football teams, I mean, they're at the top of the top historically. And then you see where they're at now. As much as I love talking trash as much as anybody, it's just life. Things comes in cycles. Nebraska football, 40 years, and I think they had one 9-win season, and everything else was like 10+ wins, national championship appearances. Look at Nebraska football today. So I'm enjoying it while it's here.
You got Alabama and Clemson. Then you've got this argument about whether Ohio State's been in the category of those two, but they're either in the category or they're in their own category just under them, and then there's everybody else. So it strikes me as fascinating. We've done this now for 7 years. Clemson clearly missed the 1 year in 2014 before they went on their run. Alabama missed last year. They were really good, but they lost 2 games, so they didn't have an argument. They clearly missed it, even though they were probably one of the 4 best teams. I certainly think that they were. For Ohio State, though, they've been in this odd place, except for 2019. They were undefeated, so they were clearly in. And this year, they were in that strange place where you pretty much knew, okay, well, the committee had them at 4. They just beat a top 15 team to win a conference and complete an undefeated season, or an undefeated half season. So they're going to make it. But there was that uncertainty that, maybe the committee will rethink this. But other than those 2 seasons from 2014 through 2018, that's 5 consecutive years, the Ohio State fan was like on the edge of their seat. Like Ohio State has been on that 4-5 line every year. 2014, they squeezed in. 2015, they were considered one of the 2 or 3 best, but they had the one loss to Michigan State that cost them the conference, so they just missed. They actually finished 3rd in the country that year. 2016, first non-conference champ, they get squeezed in. 2017, they win the Big Ten, but they got the one bad loss, so they get left out at 5. 2018, they get left out at 5. They eventually win the Rose Bowl, still finish number 3 in the country. So they've been on the 4-5 line like almost continuously. It's just kind of fascinating that they've been the one team that's always a bit controversial.
Well, I mean, of course, I have to bring this up because I'm just that guy. There was that one year that my team shellacked them 31-0 that opening round, and it was a wonderful time for me. I know that was not a wonderful time for other people on this on this show, but in all seriousness, outside of that, I mean, look, you won a national championship. And the other time last year, come down to the wire. I mean, at least you're not like Oklahoma, who every time they get put in, they get their brains kicked in. And I know there's a bunch of Sooners fans who's already just absolutely irritated that I said that, but I mean, the truth matters and statistics matters, and no matter how much you pull for your team, it doesn't erase what happened. And but yeah, Ohio State. But you got to think about this. Ohio State has been for the most part, consistent in postseason play. I
The
mean,
one
it's
downer, the one downer you bring, that's the one embarrassing one. Other than that, if you're a Buckeye fan, you don't have just all wins, but you can deal with the rest. You know, you
yeah.
swept through in 14 to win a national championship. And then last year's was a great game, heartbreaker, but you showed up, you were good, you just blew it at the end and it didn't work out, but it wasn't embarrassing. But there, that 2016, that is the one that Clemson fans can really ride.
But that night, I had to work. I was at a different job, and I had to work that night, and we had a TV nearby. And I hate it. You know how it is when you have to work and you have to miss some stuff. But I would periodically pass by the television, and everybody who worked there was Clemson fans. And I just never forget looking up and going, what is going on? I mean, I'm happy, but what is going on? You know, and so, but anyway, getting back to your point, yeah, we've had it easy. We've had it easy over the past 6 years. All of that goes back to Dabo Swinney. It goes back to the mindset that he's built at Clemson. He's retained the majority of his coaches. And when I say majority, like 90% of them. We just lost Jeff Scott last year. And honestly, if Elliott and Venables left tomorrow, I mean, first, who could blame them? If they stay tomorrow, who could blame them? Their seat is far from hot. They're praised, they're worshiped, they're admired. They can really have a pick of the litter of the jobs that will come open really any time. You know, as long as there is nothing bad about their personality that comes out and it could be damning to their career, these guys could just sit and wait and go, jobs didn't come open that would have piqued my interest. So I'm just going to stay at Clemson. And so Swinney, our success, I say our like I play, but I just really mean the Clemson community. Clemson's success has been contingent on Dabo Swinney and what he's done. And I always tell everybody, these are the good old days of Clemson. We need to soak this up because, once again, Texas, Southern Cal, Nebraska, Tennessee, Michigan, they would love to be where we're at.
You bring up Danny Ford. I got to think, since you were born in 82, he, of course, took you to the promised land in 81. And me being older than you, I remember that game. That you probably grew up with Clemson football, and you guys were good throughout the 80s and into the early 90s. You know, there were a lot of 10-2, 9-3 kind of years. But that probably came up a lot where you were like, yeah, I wasn't around for that 81, but everybody brings it up. We won it 81 under Danny Ford. He's still here, kind of thing.
You can still go to Pendleton, South Carolina, where he has his farm. Last time I saw Danny Ford, my wife and I, we were doing our getting our pre-wedding pictures taken, and this was back in 2012, and we did it outside of Pendleton because my cousin, he's a photographer, said, hey, I've got a great place for y'all to go shoot. Then afterwards, we went to this little Mexican joint in Pendleton. And lo and behold, there sits Danny Ford, his wife, I believe that was his wife, and another couple. He's sitting there drinking a beer, and I was like, sweetie, you don't know who that is over there, do you? And she's like, oh, big old dude. But yeah, I mean, that's what Clemson fans had to deal with. And you know, it was just so up and flipping down. You would have talent come in. I'll never forget where I was at when C.J. Spiller shocked the world and said he was coming to Clemson. I was in Noonan, Georgia. And for those of you who are country music fans, that's Alan Jackson's hometown. And I was actually playing a gig in that area that day. And it was early that morning. I walked by USA Today paper, and there sits C.J. Spiller signing with Clemson. And it was just, I think that's where the road started to change. But, of course, Swinney had to take over. We know that Swinney's second season, he went 6-7. I mean, it wasn't just like Swinney came in and everything immediately changed. But what he's done is remarkable. His players believe in him. this is also something, not to like get off on some crazy subject, but we've seen, especially in this offseason, teams who turned against their coaches. I think some of the problems you see at Florida State right now is because, basically they bucked the head coach and said, hey, you didn't react on a situation the way we felt you should. So unless you do XYZ, we're not going to play. We saw that in Oklahoma State. We saw that at a few different places. What's truly interesting was we had major media outlets and a few writers, which I just think they absolutely hate Swinney, who went after him. And what did you see? You saw his team, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from, step up and go, whoa, 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 whoa. Nuh-uh, not here, not here. That is what to me is remarkable, because there was a few times I was sitting there going, I don't know, because we saw so much bad that went on. But these guys really believe in Swinney, and Swinney has been so good to them. He cares for them. He cares that they graduate. He cares that they step out of trouble. He is an open, outspoken Christian. He's not going to force his beliefs down their throat, but he's also going to say, look, this Jesus guy over here he's actually, you ought to check him out. So it's when you go to Clemson these days, and I'm going to tell you this because I still go through Clemson all the time, see my family. I live about an hour away now. But you go into Clemson and you interact with people there, especially in the sports category. I was reacting with them when all the other coaches was there, and I'm not saying anything bad against those guys. I'm not saying that they wasn't legit or cared for their players. Just say it's different. It's like stepping out and breathing fresh, cold mountain air, and there's not. You just know it's healthy. That's how I feel about that. And I tell you, this offseason, I come away from it going, he really did build a culture and not a cult. It was I actually love this guy instead of I'm looking for ways to manipulate him to do what I want him to do. And I think that really, really speaks volumes. I think it's going to help us continue, as long as he wants to stay there, continue to be successful.
And not to take it too far down this road, but you hit on something regarding his faith. Some people will call it religion, Christianity, spirituality. If it was 1985, or certainly in the 50s and the 60s in this country, because I've heard a number of people criticize him even directly to me and say, that's an act. That act is not necessarily popular in all phases of society in the United States in 2020. That's not gaining him points in a lot of places. That's him. He's not doing that because that's not him to gain points with a culture that's so divided as it is. That's going out on a limb. That's just being himself. And also being himself is ranking Ohio State number 11. For 11.
Oh my God. Well, I tell you this, one thing about the guy that you can always say is that he's going to tell you. I'm looking at my hat in my reflection monitor. It was sideways. I was like, oh God, I got to fix that. No, he knows how to stir the pot. He truly does. He really does. We didn't see the Roy bus this year, really. I did see him step back. We really didn't hear anything about them keeping us out. He's really played that for the past 3 years, really, really heavy. He really stepped away from that. But I think he took a page out of the old ball coach down from South Carolina who ran back to Gainesville, Florida, because he didn't want to be a loser with those bunch of chickens down there. But Steve Spurrier knew how to stir the pot, and he did it. He did it all the time, and there was a part of you that's going like, is he serious, or is he joking, or is he a little bit of both? And I think Swinney is a little bit of both. And he knew exactly what he was doing, saying that about Ohio State, and It was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Brian, I just think he's simply on board with the Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, top 25. That actually makes sense because we rank the teams based on the resume. And, he's just saying basically, I don't necessarily think Ohio State's the 11th best team in the country. I got to think that he knows that they're a top 4 team. Just, hey, they didn't play the games. So their resume says you get dealt, a blow here. We're going to penalize you for not playing the game. So you're number 11. I'm going down the line. Okay, you're the best undefeated team with 6 games. Boom, you're 11. And he's just sticking to his guns. And yeah, but he also knows he's poking the bear.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is as much of a good guy as he is, and I don't believe it's an act. You and I both know only God truly knows a person and their thoughts and their heart and who they truly are.
Absolutely.
With that said, anybody you talk to who knows Swinney, even before Swinney was Swinney, he has always been a stand-up guy, but he is from Alabama. And he did play at Alabama. He played for Stallings. And those guys, they kind of like what you said, back in the 80s, it was a different time. 60s, it was a different time. There were certain things that, a profession of faith like you were talking about. I mean, if he's trying to win some points, he should definitely stop talking about that, which, of course, I don't want him to. But I'm just saying that if he's trying to appease people. But he's still that Alabama boy from Pelham, and he's still going to talk some trash here and there, and I think it's good, and it's going to be a good time.
If you're truly just trying to win points with the media and through them the fan base and College Football Nation, trying to get the best players, and you're not comfortable with who you are, then when it comes to that faith card, what you're going to do is you're going to just leave it out, just not even touch it. And then for those players that come into the program that feel the same way, then you're going to take them aside and you talk that lingo with them, but otherwise you leave it alone. But he's out there. He's out there with it, and it's to be commended.
Throw this out there. How many times do you hear of a Clemson football player who gets in trouble? I say this to people, and I have a friend of mine who is an atheist. I mean, he and I are two totally different people, but we're friends, and I love him to death. But we have totally different ideas politically. We have totally different ideas of, almost. But it's just, we get along. We're fine. He knows where I stand. I know where he stands. But we're friends, But you also go to just production. You just go to production. And I'm in the corporate world. That's my day job. I'm in the corporate world. And at the end of the day, you come to the end of the month, no matter how hard you work, no matter the strategy, no matter the process and everything, you come back to this. What are the results? Well, I tried really hard. Say that. Imagine that phone call to your supervisor or your manager, or your VP. Well, but I worked really hard. I put in overtime. What's your results? His results is they graduate a lot of people. They graduate, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's like 90%, 95%, something like that. These guys are rarely, if ever, in trouble. They're winning. You have to scrape hard to find something bad. That's why when the whole PED thing came out, you saw people almost dancing naked in the street. Like, we finally got it. We finally, yes. And I think the reason why it comes back to that is I think that if you can lower the bar and get it set in your mind, in my mind, that for me to be successful in this life, I just have to be dirty. I've just got to do some bad things. But y'all got to understand, I got to provide for my family. And I've just got a job to do here. And so it recalibrates the expectations of people. Well, that guy cheated and this guy cheated. And I know he did this, he did that. And then you see a guy like him come along. And it's like, oh, crap. You mean you can actually do the right thing and have great results? And that ticks some people off because, at the end of the day, they just enjoy being dirty. They enjoy being cheaters. They enjoy being jerks. They enjoy all of these things. And then a Dabo Swinney comes along. And so, I mean, once again, he is a human being. It could come out tomorrow he's having an affair on his wife. That doesn't take away that he's a good person. It means he failed and did something stupid. But the point is, we're talking football here, guys. His program is clean. It's clean. And it produces great results on and off the field. To me, I think anybody, no matter what their belief system is, and no matter what team they pull for, take all the shots you want to, and trash talk. It's part of the game. We all love that. It's fun. But when it comes to seriousness, that's just an act. Are you saying that because you just want to continue to be dirty and cheat, and that's just how the world runs? And I hate to say it, that's not the case for a lot of people, but there are people that's the case. That's their case. So I'm really happy for what he's done for the Clemson community.
Yeah, he's been in the job now for 12 seasons?
Yeah.
So he's been in the job for 12 seasons, and at this point, the players are going to ultimately vouch for the relationship that was built. So regardless of whether you agree with him, people know in the long run whether you care about them and you were doing what you were doing in their best interest. And the players all support that and all confirm that.